I think that the future is better than we think. I think a lot of times we're looking at the future, we're saying, okay, the future is not going to be good because climate change, tyrants, dictators, war, it's getting worse and worse. People look at the future saying, okay, probably not going to be as good as it could be. A lot of people are saying now, millennials particularly, between 25 and 40, they won't have kids because the future isn't good. I beg to differ. I think the future is better than we think. I'll explain what that means. First, before I get into the meat of my presentation, I want to say that the purpose of looking at the future is not to be predicting stuff. There's no such thing as prediction. But the future is really about being prepared, understanding what's coming next so we can prepare. If you're a professional, this is utmost crucial because now we're at the time where everything is changing exponentially, leaping. We're essentially entering the leap age, you could say, and science fiction is increasingly becoming science fact. We can do things today that used to be literally impossible just 10 years ago, including, of course, free phone calls via WhatsApp, music in the cloud like Spotify, and now talking to machines like ChatGPT and creating videos or analyzing text or even writing a non-disclosure agreement.
Es estupendo estar aquí. Estoy aquí para hablar del buen futuro. En estos días, mucha gente a mi alrededor dice que el buen futuro no existe.
So that's me speaking Spanish at the TEDx Cluj event in Romania just 3 months ago, and I use an app called Rask AI, and it translates my keynotes. And that was pretty much unthinkable 5 years ago. It's not quite lip-syncing yet, but that will happen very soon. And basically what it means is, okay, it's 95% accurate, I would say, in Spanish, probably a little bit more so in German, not so much in Portuguese. Depends very much on language. It's going to be some time before it's perfect, but it's usable, right? Professionals today must understand the future. And that's if you're a lawyer, accountant, bookkeeper, especially when you're an executive with a firm, or if you're being recruited to become an executive, you have to understand the future, because here's the thing, the future isn't about tomorrow anymore. The future is here. The future has arrived and we just haven't noticed. Famous science fiction writer William Gibson says, the future's already here, we just haven't paid enough attention, or it's not evenly distributed yet. So let's distribute the future, think about the future, and be ready for that future when it happens. A great example I use here a lot is looking at the car industry of the past. Basically, in the beginning of the car industry, we were looking at essentially combustion engine vehicles, and that's turning into software. So all of a sudden, cars are becoming software, and they're no longer just plain old cars. So the red bar here is the software part. Clearly, Tesla was a leader in that trend. Now, all of the car companies are becoming tech companies and software companies. Cars will drive themselves. Cars will be assisted-driven, and we'll have lots more means of using them. And it's a long story. Basically, you see the trend here from the combustion engine working on just better engines, right? More gas mileage, more power. Now we're working on electric vehicles and battery, and it's the same in the knowledge industry, right? As Henry Miller said, one's destination is never a place, but a new way of seeing things. And we need to start seeing things better. More ahead, more foresight, but also take another view at something that we may have done for 20 years. And I look at my own job as a futurist that's changing completely into more things that machines can't observe, into more human things. And that's a very big trend if we're looking at, of course, what's happening in parallel to the car industry. We used to have basically logic and facts and knowledge as the big deal about professionals, and we have lots of logic and we know everything and so on. But now that's moving into a different future where that future is more about beyond knowledge, right? Human-only skills and traits, compassion, understanding, storytelling, the narrative, all the things that only we can do as humans, because the logic is being done by machines. So a non-disclosure agreement can have quite a bit of compassion and human-only skills, but it's also very logical. And so basically all that's happening is that routines that are commodity work or dirty, dull, and dangerous in other industries, they're being outsourced to machines. And we have to look at a new way of seeing things and new values that we're going to put into our work. Right? The three revolutions that are important to keep in mind as we're going into that future and warp drive mode exponentially fast. The first one, of course, the digital revolution. And that's not new, but clearly that's still happening. And in most law firms, that's still a long way to go to realize that. Second one, of course, is the sustainability revolution. That's 100x of the digital revolution, which means everything is going green, everything is becoming sustainable, circular. And of course, lastly, the purpose revolution, thinking about what is the purpose of what we're trying to do with the business model here. How do we go beyond simple profit and growth? And that's been the stakeholder debate, the sustainable capitalism, the renewable capitalism, Al Gore, all the discussions about where we are going. This is a huge debate, and the business model of society is now slowly shifting away from this one-track mind of good old capitalism, simple profit and growth, to a wider capitalism, maybe a kind of a social capitalism, or let's drop that word completely and just say a social economy, a new economy of people, planet, purpose, and prosperity, which so happens to be my operating paradigm. But those three different things are going to fundamentally change what we do in the professions. If you're a lawyer, accountant, advisor, these are the three things that are going to make fundamental differences, enabling us to be faster with technology, changing our mindset to go more towards a sustainable world, a green future. And I always say green is the new digital, so that hangs together, of course. And purpose, right? Having purpose and also being perceived as a positive brand by our customers and people that look at us and saying, wow, I understand this guy has more meaning, more sense than other people may have. 4 exponentials in this digital revolution are already happening. And they're basically information technology, all of that stuff is clear to you. So the cloud and blockchain, not Bitcoin, blockchain as a means of smart contracts and so on, biotechnology, 3D printing, cultured meat, vertical farming, sustainable airline, jet fuel, right? All of these things are happening at the same time now. The energy and climate tech revolution will be able to power ourselves in the next 10 years by almost exclusively renewable energy. And that's going to be a big debate with the southern countries of the world to have them come along. We have this north and south extreme opposition there that we need to solve. And of course, the biggest thing in the last couple of years, month really, artificial intelligence technology, anything you do with smart machines, generative AI, and I'll talk about that a lot more in my speeches. But these 4 things are coming together: climate, information, biotechnology, and AI technology. And we have to understand what that means, how we can use it, how the goals are changing, what is really rocket science and far out there yet, like nuclear fusion, and what's very near, like quantum computing. So we're looking at this and saying, okay, that's pretty mind-boggling. How can we get engaged with this? Where does it go?
ChatGPT can now speak to you. Who are you?
I'm ChatGPT, a language model by OpenAI. How can I assist you today?
Cool voice.
Thank you.
The chatbot now has a voice. Actually, 5.
Hey.
Thank you for a special appearance, Joanna Stern, I think, from Wall Street Journal, with a video showing how ChatGPT can now be spoken to. And I think this is going to be our reality as we're moving into a future of professional service where we have those assistants that we can speak to. And then the question is, what do we do with the answer? Is it like Google Maps? Is it better than Google Maps? Is it the ultimate truth? Unlikely. Is it a tool? Does it take over our job? Is it changing our job? Very big debate. I use these tools. Currently, I don't feel like the tool can do to a very large extent what I would usually be doing. But it can be a powerful tool for me to find things. And I think in the legal professions, for example, and in recruiting, it can be doing fact-checking. It can bring information sources together and compare them. It can generate charts. It can do all these things that we used to do. That's more commodity work that can be done now by generative AI, by machines. But as we move much closer into this world, those 3 things are going to be everywhere also because they are the millennials. Gen Y, the generation between roughly 25 to 40, led by women for the most part, that are going to be absolutely everywhere in our society. It is estimated by 2030 that 65% of jobs, executive positions, will be taken up by millennials. And I think if we extend that a little bit to say 45 or even 50, then we'll see the breadth of this. That will spell perma-change, as I like to call it, because all these things are moving into the center of life now, rather than being satellites like climate change or CSR or ESG. All of these topics are now moving center stage, saying, okay, what do we really want to achieve here? And what are we expecting from the company that we work for and who they are? The mega challenge will no longer be about economics. It'll be about climate. And in the end, of course, it comes down to being the same thing, because without a well-functioning climate and planet, we don't have an economy. So they are intertwined, but clearly the objective of monetization and doing better and getting a better job, that's giving way to creating a larger story that actually makes sense. Our policy is changing from just profit and growth to people, planet, purpose. The clients are expecting us to have different views on life. And it has a huge impact on the legal professions and the recruitment for legal professions, the revolutions, the exponential domains, and of course the Gen Y. First, the future is here and now. It's no longer about tomorrow. It's not waiting for something to happen. The future isn't falling down on us from somewhere like Silicon Valley or China. Clients want to know that you get it. If you're in the recruiting business, for example, or if you're in the legal business, they want to know that you understand what's coming. You get the future. And so it's part of our job now to spend about an hour a day in the future. I'm not talking about watching movies here, Netflix or Amazon or Hulu, whatever you're watching, but to actually read up on things and read the good books, read articles to really get the future. That's really important because when you have a future mindset, as I call it, then all of a sudden things open up, things become different. Hugely increased knowledge pressure. This is, of course, a big deal in my work. Knowledge pressure means you're supposed to know this. You're supposed to be up to date. You're supposed to have tried all these things. And you need time for this. So part of the experimentation, trying new things, is just part of our job now. Ethics and policies, politics even, show up at every turn now. Everything we decide about how we use technology is now an ethical and political topic. Who should regulate it? Gen X paradigms, our paradigms are outmoding the growth paradigm, the profit paradigm. That is still going to be center stage with millennials, of course, as well. But now there are other priorities, like how much sense does this company make and who will I work for and how positive is this company. Perma-change and perma-VUCA, you hear that everywhere. That's basically the new normal. VUCA means volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity is taken from the military. And of course, it basically means that things are constantly changing. That isn't going to change. We have to change how we react to it. We have to protect ourselves from madness. Go offline, get some offline luxury, disconnect to find back to yourself. That's really important. So let's talk about humans and machines and how do we connect with artificial intelligence. What about automation of knowledge work? Because now basically machines are coming not for the factory worker, but for the knowledge worker. And if we define AI like this, Wikipedia, old definition, computer systems able to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence. Copying what humans do, natural language, decision making, that's a murky definition. I like this one better from Demis Hassabis from DeepMind, UK company now owned by Google, one of the trailblazers in artificial intelligence. Computer systems that turn information and data into knowledge. And that should make you think, because if computers have knowledge, what do we do? What happens to our knowledge? Does it become a commodity? Do we find new knowledge somewhere else? Is our knowledge different? I think computer knowledge obviously is not human knowledge, it's binary. It's based on logic, so it's a small slice of human knowledge, as we can see with ChatGPT. And general intelligence, which is the declared goal of companies like OpenAI, is autonomous systems that surpass human capabilities in the majority of economically valuable tasks. So to surpass humans in the majority of tasks. That is the declared goal of AGI, general intelligence. I think personally that's a bit far-fetched. Wouldn't it be enough just to have technology that can surpass human capabilities in some of the tasks, like manufacturing, like commodity work, so that we can stay in control. This is a very big debate, because I really believe this is the fundamental problem. Human intelligence is well researched, but we don't really have a strong idea what exactly it is in every domain. And there's at least 8, according to Gardner research, not the research firm, but the researcher. 4 of them are social, intellectual, emotional, kinesthetic, and of course logical. And machines have only logical intelligence. If you don't exist, you don't have emotions. If you don't have actual bodies, and you don't have kinesthetics. Digital intelligence is removed from all of these things, and that means that a digital intelligence, a machine, an AI, a robot, can only see a limited part of the world. I would say currently that's probably 3 to 5% of what we see. But if machines saw 10% of the world, that would be much better, and that is happening. Gives us better language understanding, better image recognition, and so on. But then it also gets complicated to figure out what are they seeing and what is actually real. This is an AI depiction of a lawyer of the future that I created using a thing called clip drop, and it's showing us this combination of humans and machines in the future. But you know, the bottom line really is generative AI, the gap between interesting and good enough is still really big if you're looking for really good. The difference between something that's just barely good enough or funny or interesting and really good in the human sense remains enormous. I think this is going to be the big deal in recruiting. Help us to get ready, to look at data, to create illustrations. But then Google Maps, is this real or is it made up? That is one of the things that I tend to worry about. And who tells us if it's real or not? If there's going to be a mechanism that tells us if AI was involved or how accurate it was. And if you're looking at these 2 pictures, that's the AI trying to generate a portrait of me using photos on the internet. And I would say, that's really interesting. Try it on AI.com as the website. It's more like the Bond version of me. Yeah, it makes me look much better. But yeah, so I would say we'd have a good laugh, but it's not really doing the same thing as a portrait photographer. So when we're looking at basically the challenge here is how our jobs will change, and it's quite clear that globally a lot of work can be automated by AI. The global average will be roughly about 18%, according to Goldman, I think, the latest research report. Higher in the US and in Brazil, for example. But really, what does it mean? I think it means that we're going to see certain tasks and routines. It's mostly about commodity tasks that will be done by AI, not our work, our jobs, our livelihood. And there's 2 options here. Now we can say, okay, the machine can do the work, I can do less work. So I can play more golf or have more free time, or get paid the same. Or I work extra because the machine is freeing me up and I make more money, or maybe I don't because my employer doesn't see it that way. But this is a tricky decision. If we're going to get more free time because we're working faster, what do we do with it? In a market economy, we'd fill up the economy, the free time, with more work. That probably wouldn't be very useful in the future, because eventually it would be a drive towards zero. A huge challenge opportunity for us is this, the automation of routines, and that is what machines are good at. And driving, for example, we can see that's not really a routine. We do have some self-driving cars in San Francisco, of course, where else, but you see any in London, assisted driving. You don't see Waymo in London, that's going to be a while, and you certainly won't see it in Beirut or in Rome or here in Zurich. I think in experimental ways, yes, but otherwise probably not. Not every routine that looks like a routine is actually a routine, or it's only partially a routine. The automation of jobs is really a separate story from the automation of routines, and I think if we're looking in this direction, we can clearly see, yeah, eventually it should be possible when we have a whole city that drives with self-driving cars autonomously and we don't drive anymore. It'll be a lot easier, but it's going to be some time. In the meantime, I think we should not confuse a clear view with a short distance. For example, when we're saying, well, the robot is going to do the cooking and the cleaning. That seems plausible, but who would want to spend 35,000 pounds on a bot like this so that we can just have a good time and laugh at him. Yes, it doesn't seem like a very good trade also, because we should probably use bots for more manageable tasks, like doing something precise, like maybe doing some household chores or lifting grandma from the bathtub and things like that. But basically, it's dramatic productivity gains for knowledge workers. That's us here, because we're knowledge workers to a large degree. And white collar, blue collar, pink collar, gold collar jobs, all changing because of this. If you're looking at this chart also from, I think, from ARK Investment, is paralegals, for example, are 4x as efficient using artificial intelligence. This is a distinct possibility as we're looking at this, and office support and admin support and even lawyers being a lot more efficient. That's clear. If I can use a power tool that compares things, looks for case studies and probes deep into legal documents, that can be very powerful. And now the question is, what do we do with this? It could be heaven or it could be hell. It could be heaven if we're going to have more free time, we'll get paid more. It could be hell if it turns out to be I do 5 times the work so everybody else gets fired. And that is a question, of course, of the economic logic. So I think we need to incentivize companies not to go down the path of creating more work because there's more efficiency, but also distributing the benefits. That's a political question and also for a question of economic logic. People plan that purpose. What is the goal that we're perceiving here? And clearly when we're looking at artificial intelligence, chat GPT and chat agents, we can take it a step further. Jan LeCun from Meta says this: imagine a future where everyone uses some sort of digital chatbot as their main interface, which means not just using a mobile phone, but using your buttonhole machine or your wristwatch or the television or whatever, and to just speak to your AI like you speak to a person. That does remind you of the movie Her, I'm sure. Falling in love with the operating system could be a distinct possibility, and that's probably 5 years away. Is that going to be good for us? Or do we get to keep our own judgment? Or do we treat it like Google Maps, where we are sometimes questioning, sometimes trustful for it, and the trustworthiness is a big deal here. That brings up lots of questions also when that happens. A digital assistant, would we ask questions? What happens to our own judgment? Are we just waiting for the AI to give us answers? And so here's a great clip by Mustafa Sulaiman. He's the CEO of Inflection. He runs a project called pi.ai, where you can have a digital friend, I would say a therapist sometimes, to bring your worries and troubles to. Really interesting what he says about where this is going.
Everybody is going to have an intelligent assistant, a personal intelligence that knows you, that is super smart, that understands your personal history, and can actually hold state. It can preserve things in its working memory. So it will be able to reason over your day, help you prioritize your time, help you invent, be much more creative. It'll be a research assistant, but it'll also be a coach and a companion. And so it's going to feel like having intelligence as a commodity.
I have to say that worries me a little bit. Be a companion. I think that's taken it a bit far. I think the idea of having a digital assistant for work would be useful. But what if I get used to it and then we really end up with Her, the movie Her, 5 to 8, maybe 10 years? That worries me about human integrity and about autonomy. And are we still capable of things ourselves? We don't have to know how to start a fire these days. We've got machines that make fire, but we should know how to make our own judgment and how to move around and how to get to decisions and how to be informed. The pyramid of work is changing as we're moving up this pyramid from down here, data, information, intellectual knowledge, deeper knowledge. What we used to do as professionals, intellectual knowledge. And now, quite clearly, machines are coming saying, well, maybe this is machine turf now. Data, information, intellectual knowledge, and I think that's probably very true. Of course, we still need intellectual knowledge and the right data as humans, but there's no way we can compete with computers and robots and AI on having lots and lots of data. But we do have the competitive factor of deeper knowledge and understanding, consciousness, human agency, wisdom, purpose, intuition, all these things that are basically human-only turf, human agency. And there are many things that require human agency. The black box problem, as we're looking at machines and they're doing our work, we don't really know how to gauge it anymore. And we need to also come up with a future mindset here, as I mentioned in the beginning. And the future mindset is going to be much less about data and information, but a lot more about wisdom, understanding, tacit knowledge. But we see here the primary business objectives using AI. They're not really rocket science. They're improve efficiency, improve customer service, employee productivity. They're basically better software. And this is the low-hanging fruit right now for the next 5 years, especially for law firms, for legal offices, for investing, for the financial industry, looking at things that make our life better, more about competence, not about consciousness. That's why I call this IA, intelligent assistants. The tools we should be looking at. They don't replace people, they make us more powerful, they are better tools, and they're graduating us from the tools we had before to smart tools that still we have to be in charge of. This chart is even more interesting, and we'll send the PDF around later so you can take a good look, but generative AI will transform knowledge work and work across every category. And the green stuff is basically a high potential for automation, for example, office admin support, sales and related, quite a bit of potential for automation. And the red box is potential for augmentation. I think what's wrong with this chart, in my view, is that I think most of the territories here, they're not really subject to automation for some time. We can see that what happened, for example, with radiologists or what happened with paralegals and so on. It's more like augmentation. I can do things faster and better and more efficiently, and how do we charge the customer for that? That's a very hard debate, right? Because the customer is going to expect savings from it. But one of the things that we clearly must do here is we must protect what makes us human. And that includes mistakes, inefficiency. You imagine we lived in a world of work when it's all about hyper efficiency, like machines. Efficiency is really for robots, and we are much more malleable than that. We make mistakes, we take a guess, we are creative, we're inventing stuff, making things up. Down here on the lower part of the pyramid, you can clearly see that professionals have actually benefited most from innovation in the past. So innovation leads to new jobs. For the most part, whether that's true this time or not, I'm not entirely sure, but I have high hopes for this if we're looking at the context here. So far, the professions have done great, have had the biggest growth as far as new jobs are concerned, the direct result of technological innovation. And I think this is important to realize as you're contemplating the future. It's probably a lot better than we think, using innovation that will propel us into new jobs. And there are scary moments when you're looking at technology. Of course, very important topic. The most common one really is we think of these machines as human. They are not. We should stop considering them conscious or spiritual machines or whatever you want to call them. They are not. They're boxes and wires and CPUs. And they tend to sound very much like a human. That's, of course, the goal, to confuse us and to make it more palatable in economic terms. A lot of challenges. It's really designed for speed, to give fast answers, not for depth. That can be deadly in legal terms. Noise in, noise out, garbage in, garbage out. Coherent answers, because that's what it's trained to do. It's a large language model, right? But not the truth. It's hard enough for a human to find the truth. And of course we have different versions of the truth, but at least we know who's speaking. With a machine, no, that's really confusing, because machines are looking at patterns. Simulations are not the same as reality. That's the same for virtuality. Simulations are not reality, and the digital world is not the real world. And so we have to be very careful about confusing these things and put them in their right place and create a handshake between humans and machines that makes it much more truthful. Social media generally amplifies all bad things 6 to 8 times as much as good things, because they click more, right? And that's not really good for democracy. I would say that the fact that democracy has declined in some countries is the fact that people see bad things on social media. So then we have things like the design of digital people, Samsung Neon and HeyGen. You can make videos without a camera. You can just feed images from yourself and then train the voice, and then this bot, essentially a digital copy of you, will speak and look like you and send automated videos to people, which could be heaven or it could be hell.
What if AI could generate video? We've created AI technology at HeyGen to replace the camera layer, unlocking 100x more creativity. This video was 100% generated with AI, with my avatar and voice clone, without the camera.
Basically like social media, but 500 times as bad. And we don't really need that. I think it's an ingenious tool. I tried it myself, and therefore let's not pour out the baby with the bathwater here, but maybe this is something you can use for marketing if you feel like you want to distribute yourself in multiple ways. I think it's really important that we look at this issue that I call the King Midas problem. As we look at technology and we say, wow, this is amazing, we should do that everywhere. King Midas' story is really quite simple. He was a greedy king. I think he lived in the 15th century. He wanted everything to be gold. He wanted to be very rich. He got a free wish, and he said, everything I touch should turn into gold. And he got his wish. His wife turned into gold. That's inconvenient. And food turned into gold, and basically everything, so he died. And I think we should be careful what we wish for when we think about AI, when we think about virtual reality, like here, the Apple Vision. I'll be the first one to try it because I like technology, but we have to be careful to wish for living in a superhuman kind of reality. What if that becomes the new normal? Then can we still be without it? Right? Machines should have competence, but not consciousness. We should not look at them and say, okay, they can be conscious and they can have human agency. General intelligence? I don't think that's a good idea. And I think companies that look to build general intelligence are looking to build a money machine and a better mousetrap. And I think that's a really dangerous thing to do. And that probably will require general regulation. And an international artificial intelligence agency that I've talked about many times, it's not hard to imagine that a machine with an IQ of 1 billion would be very hard to control. I made a film about this, lookupnow.tv. The film is called Look Up Now, an obvious analogy to the famous movie. So let's talk about purpose and sustainability a bit, and then I'll wrap up and we can have a debate, okay? Basically what's happening right now, we're realizing with climate change, this is our choice. We can do this, we have the tech, we have the money, we have the science, we can get to this point here, which is not a good point. That's the point of 3-degree warming on the global level, where pretty much every country in the middle at 3-degree global warming becomes a hothouse. So California, Mexico, all of Africa, and of course all of the Middle Eastern countries becoming more or less uninhabitable, and then 400 million people move north or wherever it's not so hot. These are choices that we make now. And we have to think about that as professionals now. Do we pick a good future? People, planet, purpose. Is the planet important? Clearly it's important for most people, unless you can go to Mars like Elon. But Kevin Kelly says something very powerful and interesting on this. He says we should be optimistic, not because we have less problems. That is definitely not true, but because we have more capacity to solve them. And I think this is really important as a positive outlook. The future belongs to optimists, not to people who talk about how nothing can be done. I think clearly many things can be done. We have to make the right decision. We have the tools, but do we have the telos, the Greek word for wisdom? That's something you should take home from tonight. California is on the offensive in the US, and the governor of California is putting us straight on this agenda.
I think it's time for us to be a lot more clear. This climate crisis is a fossil fuel crisis. This climate crisis persists. It's not complicated. It's not complicated. It's the burning of oil. It's the burning of gas. It's the burning of coal. And we need to call that out. For decades and decades, the oil industry has been playing.
Good going, Gavin. I thought that was a pretty rousing speech. You can see it on YouTube, of course. But here's the bottom line. If we're looking at this chart, this is really what's happening. We have to decouple GDP growth from carbon emissions. And we've been doing that pretty well in the last couple of years, but not well enough. Degrowth, I think that's unlikely to be a popular demand. We need to figure out how we can grow, have children, prosper, have more people without more emissions. And we have the science and the tech Now we've got to pass laws, we've got to pass regulations that bind us to it, for example, a frequent flyer tax. Those kind of things would make a lot of sense. Yes, I know it's always hard to think of that in terms of distribution, but we're clearly seeing on this chart, for example, that now addressing climate change and being proactive in climate is actually a net positive transaction, which means eventually the green economy makes money. This is the biggest economic shift that we've gone through in the last 100 years. I'm very excited about this. Hundreds of millions of people in new jobs. And clearly, I think if you think about your mindset as a leader and as an executive, you have to incorporate that into your paradigm. The green future is not a degrowth future. So let me summarize and then we'll have a short debate. I know you're looking forward to the rest of the evening in this beautiful location. So first, let's say goodbye to hyper-efficiency. Now, this paradigm that we had before COVID, that everything has to be efficient and productive, that's not the only thing that matters anymore. We're going from KPI, Key Performance Index, in HR terms, to KHI, Key Human Index. Not just efficiency, performance, optimization, but critical thinking, foresight, imagination, resilience, optimism, courage, intuition, ethics, compassion, empathy. That's what we have to learn. That's what we have to invest in. That's what we have to teach our kids. Those are the jobs of the future. So in the legal profession, that is what we do. In the end, of course, you have knowledge, but knowledge will be done increasingly by machines, and we'll have to use that information to make sense out of it. Sense making, meaning, ethics, right? Intuition, that's what humans do. I certainly wouldn't trust a machine to be compassionate. The black box challenge, especially in legal AI, of finding solutions that do the work for us, we should not adopt machines that we don't understand what they're doing. We should always keep the humans in the loop. HITL, right? That is the motto, even if it's more expensive, if it takes longer, because that's how we retain control, that's how we figure out what to do, that's how we learn, and protecting our humanity, protecting our privacy, our data, our information, our inefficiency has to be protected as well. I know that sounds like a romantic thought, but I think it's crucial for us as humans to exist in a protected place where machines are so super smart. Let me summarize a few more things as far as humans and machines is concerned. Knowledge without wisdom is like water in the sand. But it's not just knowledge we need understanding. And understanding is multipolar and multinary, not binary. And understanding sometimes is way beyond machines. And creativity, also for legal purposes, there's a lot of creativity required. It requires emotions and feeling. It requires more things than just reading things and information and looking at databases. Logic alone is not enough. Meaning requires existence, and trust isn't digital. People will not trust you just because you have a great website or an app. This is a feeling that we have, and to create meaning requires existence. And this is really important that we keep this alive and we keep this in a positive flow. Invest as much in humanity as you invest in technology. That's my summary for the evening. We need to invest a lot in technology. We need to embrace technology, but not become technology. As I say in my last book, Technology versus Humanity. We need to invest in these things: ethics, empathy, consciousness. At the same time, better tools, more intelligent assistants, learning what the future is, embracing the future mindset. That is just so crucial so that we can go into the future that is truly better than we think. So thanks a lot for your time, and now I'm open for your questions and for debate.